Welcome to the Oracle's Rest, a place where stories unfold slowly, where time softens, and where the mind is free to wander. Tonight, we sit quietly with the owls, not to chase them, not to startle them from their branches, only to listen and to watch in the soft blue dark where they live. Tonight is a collection of 100 small facts about owls, gentle things, quiet things, slow truths about feathers and night and silent wings, gathered together to carry you softly towards sleep. Owls are among the oldest birds still living on the earth. Their kind has been here for tens of millions of years, hunting through the dark long before there were any people. To hear them, fossils of early owls have been found that are more than 60 million years old, from a time not long after the great dinosaurs had gone. So, when an owl calls in the night, it is a very old sound, a sound that has been drifting through forests and across open fields since the world was young. And there are many of them. Across the world, there are more than 200 different kinds of owl, more than 200 separate species, each shaped by its own corner of the world. They are sorted by scientists into two great families. One is the family of the barn owls, with their pale, heart-shaped faces. The other, far larger, is the family of the true owls, which holds nearly all the rest: the great horned owls and the snowy owls, and the tiny pygmy owls, and so many more. Owls live almost everywhere. They are found on every continent on Earth except Antarctica, the frozen south where almost nothing can live. They hunt in cold northern forests and in hot deserts, in jungles and on grasslands, on remote islands and at the quiet edges of cities. Wherever there are small creatures moving in the dark, there is usually an owl somewhere nearby, sitting still and listening. Most owls belong to the night. They are creatures of dusk and darkness, sleeping through the bright hours and waking as the light fades. This is why we so rarely see them. They pass over us in the dark while we sleep and are settled and silent again before the morning comes. But not all owls keep to the night. A few hunt by day, like the snowy owl of the far north and the small burrowing owl of the open plains. Awake under the open sun. The first thing most people notice about an owl is its eyes. They are enormous, round, and they face forward, both of them looking the same way, the way our own eyes do. Most birds have eyes set on the sides of their heads, watching the world in two separate halves. But an owl looks straight ahead, with both eyes together, and this gives it something close to the steady forward gaze of a person. It is part of why an owl's face feels so strangely familiar to us. Those great eyes are not really shaped like balls at all. They are long, like tubes, stretched deep into the skull. This shape gathers as much light as possible and helps the owl see in the dark, but it comes at a cost. An eye shaped like a tube cannot roll in its socket. An owl cannot glance to the side the way we can. Its eyes are locked in place, fixed forward, staring straight out at the night. And so, because it cannot move its eyes, an owl moves its whole head instead. It turns its head far around on its neck, much farther than we ever could, as much as 270 degrees, most of the way around in a circle. It can look back over its own shoulder, almost directly behind itself, simply by rotating its head while its body stays perfectly still. To watch an owl turn its head this way, slow and smooth and uncanny, is one of the strangest sights in all of nature. This is possible because of the owl's neck, where we have only 7 small bones in our necks. An owl has 14, twice as many, giving it far more flexibility. And its body is built so that all this turning does not harm it. The blood vessels that feed the brain are arranged with extra room and clever pooling places, so that even when the neck is twisted far around, the blood keeps flowing and the brain is never starved. It is a quiet marvel of design, hidden under the feathers. The eyes themselves are astonishingly large for the size of the animal. In some owls, the eyes are so big that they take up most of the room in the skull, leaving only a little space for the brain behind them. If our own eyes were as large compared to our heads, they would be the size of oranges. The owl gives up a great deal of room inside its head simply for the sake of seeing in the dark, and see in the dark it does. The owl's eye is packed with the kind of light-sensing cells that work best in dimness, far more of them than our own eyes hold. In the faint glow of the moon, or the last grey light after sunset, an owl can see clearly where we would see almost nothing at all. It can pick out the small movement of a mouse in the shadows, the twitch of grass, the shift of a shape against the ground. But an owl is not blind in the daytime, as people sometimes believe. It can see perfectly well by day. Its eyes are simply tuned for the low light of night, the way our own eyes slowly adjust when we step into a dark room. The owl lives in that adjusted state always, ready for the dark, but able to open its eyes upon the bright world too, when it must. Owls do not see colour the way we do. Their eyes are built for catching light, not for sorting out shades and hues. And in the dim world they hunt in, colour hardly matters anyway. At night, everything is silver and grey and shadow. The owl sees a world of brightness and darkness, of motion and stillness, sharp and clear, but drained of the colours that fill our daylight hours. Like many birds, an owl has 3 eyelids for each eye, not 2. There is an upper lid that closes when the owl blinks, and a lower lid that rises when it sleeps. And there is a third, a thin, pale, sideways sliding lid called the nictitating membrane, which sweeps across the eye to clean and protect it, like a soft inner curtain drawn across and back again. With 3 lids, the owl keeps its great eyes safe and clear. For all their power, an owl's eyes cannot focus on things that are very close. The owl is far-sighted. Hold something just before its face, and it cannot see it sharply at all. So around its beak, the owl has a ring of fine, hair-like feathers called filoplumes, which work almost like a cat's whiskers. When prey is held too close to see, these little feathers feel it, brushing against it in the dark, telling the owl what its eyes cannot. If the owl's eyes are remarkable, its ears are more remarkable still. For all that we admire its sight, an owl may hunt even more by sound than by vision, Its hearing is among the finest of any animal on earth. In total darkness, with no light at all, some owls can find and catch their prey by sound alone, guided only by the faint rustle of a small creature moving somewhere below. In the leaves, the round, flat face of an owl is not only for looking, it is a tool for listening. That broad disk of stiff feathers, curving gently around the face, works like a dish that gathers sound, catching the faint noises of the night and funneling them inward toward the ears hidden at its edges. The owl can even adjust the feathers of its face, tightening or loosening the disc to sharpen the sounds it hears. The way we might cup a hand behind an ear, and the ears themselves hold a secret. In many owls, the two ears are not the same. One sits a little higher on the head than the other, one a little lower, set unevenly on purpose. This means a sound reaches one ear a tiny moment before the other and arrives a little louder in one than in the other. From these tiny differences, the owl's mind builds a precise picture of exactly where the sound is coming from, not only left and right, but up and down as well. The differences the owl can measure are almost unbelievably small. An owl can sense a gap of about 30 millionths of a second between a sound reaching one ear and the other. From that impossibly brief sliver of time, it works out the direction of its prey. It can pinpoint the source of a sound so exactly that it can drop straight onto a mouse it has never seen, hidden under grass or even under snow, in complete and total darkness. The barn owl is perhaps the finest listener of all. In careful tests, in rooms made entirely dark, with no light whatsoever, barn owls have been able to catch mice by sound alone, striking with their talons exactly where the small sound was made. They do not need to see at all. The world of the barn owl is a world of sound, mapped out in fine detail across the dark. Every rustle and squeak placed precisely in space. And when the owl finally moves, it moves in silence. This may be the most wonderful of all the owl's gifts. An owl in flight makes almost no sound. It can pass close overhead, and you may never hear it go by. For an animal that hunts by listening, this silence is doubly precious, for it means the owl can hear its prey without its own wing beats drowning the sound, and the prey never hears the owl until it is far too late. The silence is built into the feathers, along the leading edge of an owl's wing, the edge that cuts first into the air. The feathers are not smooth. They are fringed with tiny comb-like teeth, a row of fine serrations that break up the rushing air into smaller, gentler streams. Where another bird's wing would make a sharp whoosh as it parts the air, the owl's wing softens that sound into almost nothing. The hush does not end at the front of the wing. The whole upper surface of the owl's feathers is covered in a soft, velvety down that muffles the sound of feather sliding over feather, and the trailing edge of the wing, the edge the air leaves last, is lined with a soft, ragged fringe that smooths the air as it flows off behind. Front, surface, and back. Every part of the wing is shaped to quiet the air. The owl flies wrapped in its own silence. An owl's wings are also very large. For the weight of its body, it carries little weight on a great spread of feathers, and this lets it fly slowly, drifting and gliding on the air rather than beating hard against it. A slow, gentle, floating flight makes even less sound than a fast one, and lets the owl hang almost motionless over a field, searching, listening, waiting for the small movement that will send it dropping down. Beneath the owl, ready for that moment, are the talons. An owl's feet are armed with 4 curved, needle-sharp claws, and they grip with surprising strength. The owl's toes are arranged so that it can swivel one of them, turning it from front to back, so that it can hold its feet as 2 and 2 or 3 and 1, whichever grips its prey the best. When an owl closes its feet, it closes them hard, and what it takes hold of does not easily slip free. The beak of an owl is short, sharp, and hooked downward, curving back toward the breast. It is partly hidden in the feathers of the face, so it can look small, but it is a strong and efficient tool. The owl uses it to tear its food when the food is too large, to swallow whole, gripping and pulling pieces free. Much of the time, though, The owl does not bother to tear at all, for an owl will often swallow its prey whole in a single gulp, head first, fur and bones and all. A small mouse simply disappears down the owl's throat in one swift swallow. The owl has no teeth to chew with, no way to pick the meat from the bones, and so it does not try. It takes the whole creature in at once and lets its body sort out afterward what can be used and what cannot be used. The owl gives back. Inside the owl, the soft parts of its meal are digested, but the bones and fur and hard pieces cannot be. So the owl gathers them together in its stomach, presses them into a small, tidy lump, and coughs the lump back up, usually hours later, as a dry grey pellet. Beneath an owl's favourite roost, the ground is often scattered with these pellets, each one the quiet remains of a meal. These pellets are a kind of small treasure to those who study owls. Each one is a perfect little record of what the owl has eaten. The tiny bones still whole inside, the skulls of mice and voles, the wing cases of beetles, the feathers of small birds. By gently teasing a pellet apart, a scientist or a curious child can read exactly what an owl had for its supper and learn what small creatures share the owl's patch of the world. What an owl eats depends on the owl. Most owls hunt small mammals, the mice and voles and rats, and shrews that move through the grass and leaves at night. But owls eat all manner of things. Some take small birds. Some snatch insects and moths from the air. Some catch frogs and lizards. There are even owls that fish, wading at the edge of rivers, that hunt for fish and crayfish in the dark, running water. The great horned owl, one of the most powerful of all, is bold enough to hunt creatures that other animals avoid. It will take rabbits and other large prey, and it is one of the few hunters that will readily kill and eat a skunk, untroubled by the spray that turns nearly everything else away. Strong, fierce, and adaptable. The great horned owl hunts across much of the Americas, from forest to desert to the edges of towns. In the far north, the snowy owl lives largely on small furry creatures called lemmings, which swarm across the tundra in some years, and grow scarce in others. The owls rise and fall with them in a good lemming year. Snowy owls may raise many young, the nest full of hungry owlets. In a poor year, they may raise few or none at all. The lives of the owls are tied directly to the small lives beneath them because they hunt so many rodents. Owls have long been quiet friends to people who farm. A single barn owl family can catch a great many mice and rats in a season, far more than any trap. Knowing this, many farmers put up nest boxes in their barns and fields, inviting the owls to settle and hunt, so that the owls keep the rodents from the grain. It is an old and gentle partnership between people and the birds of the night. Owls come in an astonishing range of sizes. The very smallest is the elf owl, a tiny creature of the southwestern deserts, no bigger than a sparrow. It weighs little more than a small handful of feathers, around the weight of a few coins, and stands only a little taller than a person's thumb. It often makes its home in old woodpecker holes drilled into the tall saguaro cactus, and it lives mostly on insects, snatching moths and beetles from the night air. At the other end stand the giants. The largest owls in the world are the Eurasian eagle owl and Blakiston's fish owl, great heavy birds that may weigh as much as a small dog and spread their wings nearly 2 meters across, wider than a tall person is high. To see one of these vast owls open its wings and lift silently into the air is to understand how an owl could once have seemed to people long ago, like something out of a dream. Between these extremes is the great grey owl, which looks like one of the largest owls of all, tall and broad with an enormous round face. But much of that great size is an illusion made of feathers. Beneath its thick, fluffy plumage, the great grey owl is surprisingly light, far lighter than the smaller looking but heavier owls. Its bulk is mostly warmth, a deep coat of feathers to hold off the cold of the northern forests where it lives. The snowy owl is the heaviest owl in North America. A solid, powerful bird dressed in white. The males grow paler as they age, some turning almost pure white, while the females keep more of their dark flecks and bars. against the snow of the tundra, they nearly vanish. A white shape on a white world, visible mostly by the deep gold of their watching eyes. Owls are masters of hiding in plain sight. Many of them wear feathers patterned in browns and greys and soft mottled bars that match the bark of trees almost perfectly. An owl pressed against a trunk, eyes half closed, can be nearly impossible to see even when you are looking straight at it. It does not flee and it does not hide in a hole. It simply becomes part of the tree, still and silent, and lets your eye slide past. Many owls have feathered legs and feet, right down to the toes, unusual among birds. This thick covering keeps them warm in the cold and shields their skin from the bites and struggles of the prey they grip. In their talons, the snowy owl and the great horned owl are especially well wrapped, their legs and feet dressed in feathers like soft boots, ready for snow and for struggle alike. Some owls appear to have ears standing up on top of their heads, two pointed tufts rising from the skull. But these are not ears at all. They are simply feathers, tufts of plumage that the owl can raise and lower. And the real ears are hidden lower down at the edges of the face. These feather tufts are thought to help the owl in other ways, perhaps in showing its mood, perhaps in breaking up its outline. So it looks even more like a broken branch. The great horned owl is named for these very tufts. The two feathered horns that rise from its head and give it a fierce, unmistakable shape against the dusk. They are among the most familiar of all owls, and their deep, soft hooting is one of the classic sounds of the night across the Americas. A sound that many people know, even if they have never seen the bird that makes it. When an owl needs new feathers, it does not lose them all at once. It molts slowly, a few feathers at a time, replacing them gradually over weeks and months. This careful, gradual change means the owl is never left with gaps that would spoil its silent flight or leave it unable to hunt. It keeps its quiet wings whole and working even as it slowly renews them, feather by feather, season by season. The barn owl is one of the most beautiful and most haunting of all the owls. It has a smooth, pale, heart-shaped face, almost white, and a body the color of old gold and grey. In the dark, it can look truly ghostly, a pale shape gliding low and silent over a field. And it does not hoot. Instead, it gives a long, harsh, rasping screech, a wild, scraping cry in the night that has frightened many a person who did not know what made it. In fact, owls make far more sounds than the gentle hooting we imagine. They screech and scream. They bark and chitter. They whistle and trill. And they hiss. They snap their beaks sharply as a warning, a dry, clacking sound made by clicking the bill. Each kind of owl has its own voice, and many have several calls for different needs. One to claim their territory, one to call a mate, one to warn of danger. When an owl is young or frightened, it may hiss like a snake and snap its beak, swaying and puffing itself up to look larger than it is. An owlet cornered in its nest can make a startling, threatening hiss, a sound far bigger than the small, fluffy creature making it. It is a bluff, a small bird's way of seeming dangerous when it has no other defense. The deep hooting we most often think of belongs to owls, like the great horned owl and the tawny owl. A great horned owl's call is a soft, rhythmic series of hoots, and a mated pair will often call back and forth to each other, the male and the female, answering in turn, their voices weaving together across the dark trees in a slow duet, the famous call of the tawny owl, the one people imagine as the classic owl sound in the woods of Europe, is really the voices of two birds, not one. One owl gives a sharp, questioning queek, and another answers with the long, quavering hoot, and our ears blend the two together into a single familiar call. The sound of one owl in the night is often, in truth, a conversation between two. The voices of owls are individual enough that, with care, the calls of separate birds can sometimes be told apart, one from another. Each owl carries its own small differences in its voice, and to those who listen closely, night after night, the owls of a wood can become known as individuals, each with its own slightly different song drifting from its own corner of the trees. People have listened to owls for a very long time and have woven them deep into story and belief. In ancient Greece, the little owl was the companion of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. And so the owl became a symbol of knowledge and learning, an image we still carry today when we call someone a wise old owl. The small owl that followed the goddess even carries her name in its own to this day. That same little owl appeared on the silver coins of ancient Athens, stamped beside the goddess herself. The coins were so common and so well known that they were sometimes simply called owls. To carry an owl in old Athens was to carry money. The bird of wisdom was also, for a time, the very face of the city's wealth. But the owl has not always been seen as wise or kindly. In many places and many times, people heard the owl's night cry and felt a chill of fear. The owl was thought to be a bird of ill omen, a messenger of death or misfortune, its call a warning of sorrow to come. The Romans especially dreaded the hoot of an owl and told of owls foretelling the deaths of great men. So, the owl has worn two faces through human history: wisdom and dread, knowledge and death, often at the same time in different lands. Perhaps this is only fitting for a creature of the dark, glimpsed rarely, heard more often than seen, moving silently through the hours when human imagination runs most freely. The owl became a screen on which people painted both their fears and their hopes. Owls, for all their hunting skill, are not great builders. Most owls make no real nest of their own at all. Instead, they take whatever shelter the world offers. They settle into hollows in old trees, or move into the abandoned nests of hawks and crows, or tuck themselves onto cliff ledges and into barns and ruins. They are borrowers of homes, content to use what others have made or left behind. The burrowing owl takes this even further and lives underground. It makes its home in burrows in the open ground, often in holes dug first by prairie dogs or ground squirrels or tortoises, and there it nests and shelters beneath the surface. It is small and long-legged, and unlike most owls, it is often active in the daytime, standing at the mouth of its burrow in the sun. The burrowing owl has a curious habit. It will gather up the dung of other animals and scatter it around the entrance of its burrow. The dung draws beetles and other insects, and the owl then catches and eats the creatures that come to it in its own small way. The burrowing owl is almost a farmer, drawing its food toward its door and harvesting what arrives. When startled, burrowing owls bob and bow at the entrance of their holes, dipping their whole bodies up and down, and some young burrowing owls, when threatened underground, can make a buzzing, rasping call that sounds remarkably like the warning rattle of a rattlesnake. A clever trick to frighten away anything that might come digging into the burrow after them. Owls lay eggs that are almost perfectly round and pure white, unlike the speckled, oval eggs of so many other birds. The eggs have no need to be camouflaged, hidden away as they are in dark holes and burrows and old nests. And so they stay plain and white and smooth. A clutch of round white owl eggs in the shadow of a tree hollow is a quiet, simple thing. Owls often begin to sit on their eggs as soon as the first one is laid, rather than waiting for the whole clutch to be complete. This means the eggs hatch one after another, several days apart, instead of all together. So, in a single nest, there may be owlets of very different sizes. The oldest already large and strong, while the youngest is newly hatched and tiny. A staircase of brothers and sisters. Newly hatched owlets come into the world covered in soft white down, with their eyes closed, helpless and small. They cannot yet see, cannot fly, cannot feed themselves. For weeks, they depend entirely on their parents, who bring food to the nest again and again through the nights, tearing it small enough for the little ones to swallow. As the owlets grow, but before they can truly fly, many of them begin to climb. They clamber out of the nest and onto the branches around it, gripping with their feet and even using their beaks, shuffling along the limbs of the tree. This stage is called a branching, and a branching owlet is a comical, fluffy, half-grown thing exploring the world on foot before it has learned to take to the air. Both parents usually share the work of raising the young. Often the female stays close, brooding and guarding the owlets, while the male hunts and carries food back to the nest. Later, as the young grow hungrier, both parents may hunt to keep up with the demand. Raising a brood of owls is long, patient labor carried out night after night in the dark. Some owls are fierce in defense of their nests. The great horned owl, in particular, will not hesitate to drive off anything that comes too near its young, including people. It can swoop down silently from behind and strike with its talons. A startling thing to feel out of the darkness. For all their stillness, owls protecting their young are bold and dangerous. Most owls stay in one place all year round, holding to their patch of forest or field through every season. But some owls do travel. The snowy owl, in certain winters, comes south from the Arctic in great numbers, appearing in places that rarely see it. An event so striking that birdwatchers travel far to witness it. These movements are called eruptions, and they come and go with the fortunes of the owls in the north. These snowy owl eruptions are thought to be tied to the lemmings of the tundra. In years when lemmings are plentiful, the owls raise many young, and so when winter comes, there are more owls than the north can hold, and they spread southward in search of food. The white owls turn up on fence posts and rooftops and frozen shores, far from the tundra of their birth. Ghosts of the north come visiting. Owls can live a surprisingly long time. In the wild, a great horned owl may live well over a decade, and in the safety of captivity, with food and care and no enemies. Some owls live for 20, 30 years or more. For a bird, this is a long life, and an old owl may have watched over the same stretch of woods for many, many years, season turning to season beneath its quiet gaze. Owls are mostly solitary creatures, keeping to themselves, hunting alone through the dark. But a group of owls, when they do gather, has a wonderful old name. A group of owls is called a parliament. The name comes from old stories and poems in which the birds were imagined meeting together in solemn council, wise and grave, like lawmakers gathered in the trees, because an owl cannot move its eyes. It sometimes bobs and weaves its head about, dipping and circling, peering at something from slightly different angles. This odd little dance is not confusion. It is the owl gathering different views of the same thing, so that by comparing them, its mind can judge how far away the thing is, building a sense of distance from a fixed and staring pair of eyes. The northern saw-whet owl is one of the smallest and most charming of owls, a tiny round bird with a startled kitten-like face. Its name comes from one of its calls, a sound that was thought to resemble the noise of a saw being sharpened on a whetstone. Saw-whet owls are small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, and they are famous for being remarkably calm and gentle when found. Despite their small size, saw-whet owls are travelers. Each autumn, many of them migrate, moving south through the night in surprising numbers, slipping unseen overhead while the world sleeps. For years, people hardly realized how many there were, because they passed so quietly in the dark. Only when researchers began to gently catch and count them did the true scale of their secret migration come to light. The northern hawk owl breaks the usual owl pattern by hunting in broad daylight. It perches at the very top of a spruce tree in the northern forests and watches the ground below with sharp eyes, more like a hawk than an owl, and dives on its prey by sight. It is a creature of the long northern days, awake and hunting under the open sky. Some of the small owls carry a clever trick on the backs of their heads. The northern pygmy owl and others have markings on the nape of the neck that look exactly like a second pair of eyes, dark spots ringed with pale feathers. These false eyes may fool small birds and other creatures into thinking the owl is watching them when its back is turned, a painted face guarding the owl from behind. The pygmy owls themselves are tiny but fierce, active often by day. They are bold hunters of small birds. taking prey sometimes nearly as large as themselves. Small birds know them well and fear them, and will often gather and scold a pygmy owl loudly when they find one, mobbing it together to drive the little hunter away from their nests. Part of why an owl's face moves us, so is that it looks forward at the world, both eyes together, the way our own faces do. This forward gaze gives the owl something we read as expression, a steady, thoughtful, watching look. We see a face where another bird would show us only a profile. And so, the owl, more than almost any other bird, seems to look back at us when we look at it. The eyes of an owl will sometimes shine in the dark when a light catches them. Behind the seeing part of the eye lies a mirror-like layer that bounces light back through, giving the eye a second chance to catch it and helping the owl see in dimness. This is the same layer that makes the eyes of cats glow, and when a beam of light finds an owl in the night, its eyes may flash back at you, two small lamps in the dark. An owl's bones, like the bones of most birds, are light and partly hollow, filled with air rather than solid through. This lightness helps the owl fly, keeping its body airy enough to drift on its broad, soft wings. Beneath all those feathers, the owl is far lighter than it looks, a creature built more of air and feather than of weight. In most kinds of owl, the female is larger than the male, a reversal of the usual pattern among birds and animals, where the male is so often the bigger of the two. Why this should be is not fully understood. Perhaps the larger female is better able to guard the eggs and young, or to endure the long days of sitting on the nest while the smaller, lighter male slips away to hunt. When owls court, they court with care. A male may bring gifts of food to the female, offering her a fresh caught mouse as a sign of his worth as a provider and a mate. There are calls and displays, gentle preening between the pair, flights and bows and soft sounds in the dark. The bond formed this way may last a single season, or in some owls may last for years. An owl's feathers, so wonderfully soft and silent, are not very good at shedding water. The same loose, downy structure that quiets the owl's flight also lets the rain soak in And so owls do not much like to fly in heavy rain. In a downpour, an owl will often sit it out, hunched on a sheltered branch, waiting for the wet to pass before it takes again to the air. The fish owls are a curious exception to the owl's silent flight. They hunt by snatching fish and other creatures from the water, prey that cannot hear them coming through the air at all. And so they have less need to fly in silence. And indeed, the fish owls have given up some of the soft fringes that hush the wings of other owls, where silence brings no advantage. Nature has not bothered to keep it. A fish owl hunts not by dropping from the sky onto land, but by watching the water from a low perch, or by wading in the shallows, reaching in to seize fish and frogs and crayfish with its talons. The largest of them, Blakiston's fish owl of the cold rivers of the Far East, is among the biggest owls in all the world. A great shaggy bird crouched by the dark moving water. The short-eared owl hunts low over open country, quartering back and forth above grasslands and marshes in the failing light of dusk, flying with slow, floppy, moth-like wing beats close to the ground. It is one of the owls most often seen by people because it hunts in the open and in the half-light, drifting over the fields as the day fades. In winter, long-eared owls sometimes gather to roost together in numbers, settling into a stand of dense trees, several or many owls sharing the same quiet grove. Through the cold days, they sit close and still and upright, slender and well hidden. And a whole hidden company of them may rest in a single thicket, unseen by anyone who walks beneath. The barn owl is one of the most widespread of all land birds, found across much of the world, on nearly every continent, and on many islands too. Wherever there are open fields and old buildings and mice to hunt, the pale, heart-shaped face of the barn owl may be found. The same ghostly hunter haunting barns and church towers and hollow trees across the warm and temperate lands of the earth. Owls keep watch over their own warmth and comfort as the seasons turn. In the heat, they may flutter the soft skin of their throats to cool themselves, and in the cold, they fluff their feathers out into a thick, round ball trapping warm air close against the body. The owl on a frozen branch, puffed and round and still, is wrapped in a coat of its own making against the winter night. Some owls in the cold seasons will store extra food away, tucking a caught mouse into a hidden place, to return to later when hunting is poor. In the deep cold, the stored food may even freeze solid, and the owl must sit upon it, brooding it warm again as if it were an egg before it can be eaten. It is a careful, patient way of holding on through hard and hungry times. Owls hunt most often from a perch, sitting still and silent on a branch, or post and watching and listening to the dark world below, then dropping down upon whatever passes beneath. It is a patient way to hunt, built on stillness rather than the chase, on waiting rather than pursuit. The owl spends far more of its nights sitting quietly than flying, a watcher more than a wanderer. The grip of an owl's talons can be remarkably strong, far stronger than its small size might suggest. The great owls in particular can clamp down with real force, enough to hold fast a struggling animal and to subdue it quickly. The talons, more than the beak, are the owl's true weapons, and a large owl strikes and holds with a strength out of all proportion to its airy, feathered body. Owls have appeared again and again in the stories people tell, down to our own day. The wise old owl of the fables, the messenger owls and snowy companions of more recent tales. The owl perched on a witch's shoulder. The owl of the storybook woods. The bird that ancient Greeks set beside their goddess of wisdom still flies through the books we read to children at night, carrying the same old weight of mystery and knowledge. For all that we have learned of them, owls keep much of their mystery still. They live in the hours we do not, awake while we sleep, moving through a world of sound and shadow that we can barely imagine. We catch only glimpses, a shape against the moon, a cry in the dark, a pale face turning slowly on a branch. The rest belongs to the night, and to the owls, and to the long, quiet dark in which they have hunted for 60 million years. though an owl's eyes cannot move. Each eye sees a wide sweep of the world, and the two together overlap in front, so that what lies straight ahead is seen by both eyes at once. This overlap is what gives the owl its fine sense of depth, its ability to judge distance precisely as it drops upon its prey. Where many birds see two separate worlds to either side, the owl sees one world directly before it, in depth, the way we do when an owl strikes at last. In the final instant before its talons close, it often draws that third eyelid across its eyes, the pale sliding membrane sweeping shut. A struggling mouse, a thrashing prey, could so easily scratch or pierce those great and precious eyes. So at the moment of the strike, the owl closes them behind their soft, protecting curtain and trusts. For that last instant, to its other senses, the very word owl seems to come from the sound the bird makes. In many languages, the name for the owl echoes its call, a soft hooting word built to mimic the soft hooting cry. Across the world and across the ages, people have named the owl simply by trying to say the sound it makes in the dark, and so its name carries its voice within it. Owls are gathered by scientists into their own great order, set apart from the other birds of prey. Though we call owls and hawks and eagles all birds of prey, owls are not in truth close cousins to the hawks at all. They came to their hooked beaks and gripping talons along their own separate path, shaped by the same kind of hunting life, but descended from a different line. Their likeness to the hawks is a likeness of trade, not of blood. The reason owls cough up pellets at all lies in their gentle stomachs. An owl's digestion is mild, its stomach acids weak compared to those of many other hunters, too weak to dissolve bone and fur, and so those hard parts must be gathered and cast back up instead, until an owl has brought up its pellet. It usually will not eat again. The old meal's remains needing first to be cleared away. Owls of the same kind do not always wear the same colors. Some owls come in different shades, called morphs, that stay with the bird for life. The eastern screech owl, for instance, comes in a grey form and a reddish, rust-colored form, two quite different looks in the very same species, each blending best with certain trees and certain woods. The screech owls, for all their name, do not really screech. Their voice is a soft, tremulous trill, or a gentle whinny that falls away down the scale, a wavering, almost mournful sound drifting through the night woods. It is a far cry from the harsh scream of the barn owl, a small, eerie, musical note that surprises those who expect something fiercer. From a bird called a screech owl, owls keep their feathers clean with great care. For clean, well-kept feathers are what keep their flight silent and their bodies warm and dry. They preen for long stretches, drawing each feather through the beak, and they spread oil from a gland near the tail across their plumage. Some owls will also bathe in shallow water or in falling rain or even in fine dust, working the dirt and parasites from their feathers. On the middle toe of each foot, an owl carries a small comb. The claw of that toe is finely toothed, like a tiny comb, and the owl uses it to groom the delicate feathers of its face, the very feathers that gather sound, which its hooked beak is too clumsy to tend. With this little comb claw, the owl keeps its listening face neat and in order. An owl even has eyelashes of a kind, short bristled feathers above the eyes that help shield them from dust and from the brush of branches. Combined with the great round eyes and the broad flat face, these lend the owl much of its expression, the look of a face with brows peering out at us from the dark with what seems almost like thought. The colour of an owl's eyes may hold a small clue to the hours it keeps. Owls that hunt deep in the night often have dark, almost black eyes. Owls that hunt at dusk and dawn tend toward orange, and owls that are abroad in daylight often have bright yellow eyes. It is not a perfect rule, but across the many owls of the world, the pattern can often be seen. The eye's colour matched to the hour of its hunting. The boreal owl of the northern forests, known in parts of the world as Tengmon's owl, has ears so wildly uneven that even the bones of its skull are lopsided, built askew to set the two ears at different heights. This crooked skull is no flaw. It is a finely tuned instrument, shaped to catch the smallest sounds of mice moving beneath the snow of the deep northern woods. The great grey owl is a master of hunting what it cannot see. In the northern winter, it listens for the small sounds of voles moving in their tunnels beneath the snow, and then it plunges down, crashing feet first through the snow crust, to seize a creature it never laid eyes on, guided wholly by sound. It can punch through snow deep enough to bury its whole head and more, striking true at a target hidden entirely from sight. In the endless daylight of the Arctic summer, the snowy owl hunts under a sun that never sets. There is no true night for it to wait for, and so it hunts by day as readily as by any other hour, raising its young in the round-the-clock light of the far north, where for weeks on end the darkness simply never comes. Across the world, many owls carry the sound of their own calls in their names. In Australia and New Zealand, there is an owl called the boobook and another called the moorpork, each named for the two soft notes of its night call, repeated over and over in the dark. To name them, people simply wrote down the sound that came drifting out of the trees. Australia is also home to the powerful owl, a great and formidable hunter of the forests there. It is large enough to take possums and other sizable creatures from the branches at night, and it will often be found by day still clutching the remains of its last catch in its talons as it dozes, a quiet giant of the southern woods. Owls drink very little. Most of the water an owl needs comes from the bodies of the prey it eats, the moisture in the flesh enough to keep it going. An owl may go without drinking at all for long stretches, taking its water with its food, well suited to dry country and hard seasons, where open water is scarce. The tiny elf owl, when it is caught and cannot escape, will sometimes go limp and play dead, hanging slack as though lifeless until the danger passes, and it can suddenly revive and slip away. For so small a creature, with so little strength to fight, the trick of seeming already dead is one more way to survive in a world full of larger things. Owls have been part of human imagination since the very beginning of art. In a cave in France, there is an engraving of an owl scratched into the stone many thousands of years ago. Among the oldest images of any bird that human hands have left behind, even in the deep dark of the Ice Age, by firelight, someone looked at an owl closely enough to carve it, turned head and all, into the rock. In some places, the owl has been a creature of good fortune rather than dread. In Japan, the owl is often thought of as lucky, its name sounding like words that mean good fortune and freedom from hardship, so that little owl figures are kept as charms. In parts of India, the owl is linked with the goddess of wealth and good fortune, carried as her companion. The same bird that some have feared, others have welcomed gladly. The silent flight of owls has caught the attention of those who build machines. For we have long wished to make our own machines quieter. Engineers have studied the comb-edged, velvet soft feathers of the owl's wing closely, hoping to borrow their secrets for the blades of fans and turbines and the wings of aircraft, trying to learn from the owl how to move through the air without a sound. Owls are faithful to their resting places. An owl will often return to the same roost day after day, the same branch, the same hollow, the same quiet corner, season after season. Beneath such a long-used roost, the pellets gather thickly over time, and the owl above sits in the same familiar spot it has chosen as its own. A small, fixed point in the turning of the year. Across so much of the world, owls are also quietly threatened by the lives we lead. They are poisoned without anyone meaning it. When they eat mice and rats that have themselves eaten poison set out for them, the harm passing up from the small creatures to the hunter. They strike cars on dark roads and collide with wires and windows. The silent hunters of the night meet many dangers in a world reshaped by people. And this is one more reason the old partnership between owls and farmers matters so much. An owl family hunting freely keeps the rodents down without any poison at all, and so causes none of the harm that poison brings. to welcome owls, to give them places to nest and room to hunt, is to let them do the work they have always done, gently, silently, and without cost to anything else that lives. New kinds of owl are still being found, even now. The world is wide and the night is dark and small, quiet. Hidden birds are easy to overlook. Now and then, in some far forest, scientists discover an owl no one had ever named before, recognized at last by its strange call drifting from the trees. After all this time, the owls have not yet shown us all of themselves. In the great rainforests of the Americas lives the spectacled owl, named for the pale rings of feathers around its dark eyes, that look like a pair of spectacles. It is a large owl of the warm jungle, hooting low through the heavy green dark, and its young are nearly the reverse of the adults, dressed in pale down where the grown birds are dark, slowly changing as they age. The barn owl swallows so many small rodents in a single night that a family of them clears great numbers of mice from the fields around through a long season of raising young. A pair of barn owls and their growing brood may take many thousands of small creatures from the land, an enormous, quiet harvest carried home mouthful by mouthful through the dark. For all its fierceness as a hunter, an owl is a creature of stillness more than of fury. It spends the long hours of the night mostly waiting, watching, listening from its perch, and only now and then does it slip down on silent wings to take what it has been waiting for. Its life is patient and quiet, lived in the dark, built far more on listening than on the chase, to hold their long, tubular eyes in shape. Owls have a ring of small bones around each eye, a bony circle called the sclerotic ring that braces the eye and keeps its stretched form. The eye is not a loose ball rolling in a socket, but a fixed tube held firm by bone, pointed always forward, a kind of living telescope built into the skull and aimed out at the night. The owlets, in their first days, have heads almost too heavy for their small bodies to lift, and so very young owlets often sleep lying down, face pressed to the floor of the nest, their heavy heads turned to the side because they cannot yet hold them up while they rest. It is a strange and tender sight. A row of fluffy owlets sprawled and sleeping as though they had simply tipped over where they stood. In the woodlands of Europe, the tawny owl is among the most common of owls, a round, dark-eyed bird of the trees. It hunts almost entirely by sound in the thick cover of the woods, and its black eyes mark it. As a creature of the deep night, its quavering hoot is, for many people there, the very voice of the dark forest. Owls do not all call at the same pitch. The great owls tend to give low, deep, far-carrying hoots, while the small owls give higher trills and whistles and toots. A low sound travels far through the trees, well suited to a large owl claiming a wide territory, while the smaller owls call in higher, lighter voices that suit their smaller worlds. Some owls are ventriloquists of a kind, their calls strangely hard to place. The long-eared owl and the little flammulated owl give low, soft hoots that seem to come from nowhere in particular, so that even when you hear one clearly, you may not be able to tell where it sits. The sound seems to drift and float, hiding the bird as surely as its feathers do. The flammulated owl is a tiny, insect-eating owl of western mountain forests. And unlike most small owls, it has dark eyes rather than yellow. It is a long-distance traveler, slipping south for the winter, and its deep, soft hoot seems far too low and large to come from so small a bird. A great voice in a tiny body, ventriloquial and hard to find among the pines. Owls are not only hunters, but also the hunted. Larger owls will take smaller ones, and great horned owls in particular will kill and eat other owls when they can. Eagles and other large hunters take owls too. So even the silent predator of the night must keep its own watch. For in the dark there is always something larger that might be listening. In years of hunger, the staggered ages of owlets in a nest can turn harsh. When food grows scarce, the largest and strongest owlets are fed first and survive, while the smallest may not. And in the worst times, the stronger young may even consume the weaker. It is grim, but it is also a way of saving some when not all can be saved, the brood narrowing down to what the hard season can support. The white plumage of the barn owl may be more than mere camouflage. On bright moonlit nights, researchers have found a barn owl's pale, glowing underside can briefly startle and freeze the small creatures it hunts. The flash of white in the moonlight, holding the prey still for the instant the owl needs. Even its ghostly paleness, it seems, maybe a kind of hunting tool. Bright moonlight changes the night for owls in other ways too. On the most moonlit nights, many small creatures grow cautious and stay hidden, harder to catch, and so some owls hunt less and rest more when the moon is full and high. The owls live by the moon as much as by the dark, their fortunes rising and falling with its phases, as it waxes and wanes. A snowy owl will sometimes wander astonishing distances. Birds fitted with tracking devices have been followed across vast stretches of the frozen north, ranging over the sea ice and the open tundra for hundreds and hundreds of miles, far from any land a person would think to look for them. The white owls of the Arctic are great wanderers of the empty places at the top of the world. The little owl, the very bird once sacred to the goddess of wisdom, is a small, flat-headed owl, often active in the daylight, bobbing and peering from posts and walls and old trees. Long ago, it was carried to new lands by people who admired it, and it settled in and made its home there, so that the ancient owl of the Greek goddess now calls. Across fields, far from where its legend began, owls keep their feet warm in the cold by a clever arrangement of their blood. The warm blood flowing out toward the feet, running alongside the cooler blood flowing back, so that heat is passed across and saved rather than lost to the frozen ground. This is why an owl can stand on ice and snow through a long winter night without freezing, its feet kept just warm enough by the quiet trade of heat within. The number of eggs an owl lays often rises and falls with the food around it in a rich year with prey everywhere. An owl may lay a large clutch and raise many young. In a lean year, it may lay only a few, or none at all. The owl reads the abundance of the world and shapes its family to match, never raising more young than the land can feed. An owl's egg is sat upon for around a month before it hatches, the parent bird turning it and keeping it warm through the long days. And after hatching, there are many more weeks of growing before the young owl can fly and hunt and fend for itself. From egg to independence is a slow journey, carried through season after season by the patient work of the parents. The snowy owl is held dear enough to stand as a symbol of place. In Canada, it is the official bird of the province of Quebec, chosen for its beauty and its tie to the northern land. Owls of many kinds appear on coins and stamps and emblems around the world. The old image of the watching owl pressed into the small official marks of nations. Birds can sometimes rest one half of their brain at a time, keeping a single eye open and half awake even as they sleep. And owls share in this watchful kind of rest. An owl dozing on its branch is rarely fully off its guard, able to keep part of itself alert to danger even while it sleeps. Through the bright and dangerous hours of the day, the long-eared owl is a slender, secretive owl with tall, feathered tufts that it raises when alarmed, stretching itself thin and upright against a trunk until it all but disappears. It hunts over open ground at night and hides in dense cover by day. And in winter, many of them may share a single roosting thicket, a hidden gathering of long, thin shapes among the branches. For all the kinds of owl, large and small, near and far, they share the same deep gifts. The great eyes, the listening face, the silent wings, the patient stillness in the dark. From the tiny elf owl in its desert cactus to the great fish owl by its cold river, they are all hunters of the quiet hours, all shaped for the same long task of moving unseen and unheard through the night. The hearing of the barn owl is so fine that people have studied it for what it can teach us about ourselves, unlike our own ears, which fade and dull as we grow old. The barn owl seems to keep its sharp hearing throughout its whole life, its ears renewing themselves in ways ours cannot. In the small head of this pale night bird may lie, clues to the mending of hearing in people. And so the owl quietly teaches, even as it hunts. Inside the owl's brain, the sounds of the night are laid out almost like a map. The signals from the two uneven ears are gathered and compared, and from them the owl builds an inner picture of space, each sound placed in its own position, left or right, high or low, near or far. The owl does not merely hear the night, it maps it, point by point, in the darkness behind its great still eyes. The feathers of some owls hold a hidden glow. Under ultraviolet light, the kind of light our eyes cannot see, parts of certain owls' feathers shine a soft pink, and the strength of that glow can even reveal how old the feathers are. So researchers shine such light on an owl's wing to read its age in the quiet fluorescence, a secret color written into the plumage and invisible by day. An owl relies so wholly on sight and sound that it has little need of smell, and indeed an owl's sense of smell is thought to be poor. This is part of why the great horned owl can hunt the skunk so freely, untroubled by a defense that works mainly on the nose, where other hunters are driven off by the scent. The owl, smelling little, simply does not mind. The face of an owl is shaped to its way of hunting. The barn owl wears a smooth heart of pale feathers, while many of the true owls wear a broad, round disc. Each shape gathers sound in its own way, tuned over long ages to the kind of prey and the kind of country the owl lives in. The very look of the owl's face, a record of how it listens. In the old forests of western North America lives the spotted owl, a dark, gentle, retiring bird that needs the deep, ancient woods to thrive. As those old forests have grown fewer, so has the owl, and it has become a quiet symbol of all that is lost when the oldest trees come down. Its fate is bound to the great old groves, and it cannot easily live without them. When an owl courts, there is often flight as well as song. Pairs may chase and circle through the trees, calling, displaying, the male showing the female a likely nest hole, or bringing her food to prove he can provide. These quiet courtships carried out in the dark, bind the pair together for the breeding season, and in some kinds of owl, the same two birds will return to each other year after year. The talons of a large owl can grip with a force startling in so light a creature. The great horned owl's grasp is powerful enough to hold prey that struggles hard. The four curved claws closing like a trap. It is with the feet, far more than the beak, that an owl does its hunting, striking and seizing and holding fast in a single silent rush from above. Owls take their water where they find it, and where open water is scarce, they will sip dew from leaves or take the moisture in their food, asking little of the dry land they so often live in. A desert owl like the elf owl may rarely drink at all, drawing nearly all the water it needs from the soft bodies of the insects it eats. In the safety of human care, some owls reach great ages, far beyond what they could hope for in the wild. Large owls, especially the eagle owls and their kin, have been known to live for decades, watched over and fed, growing old in a way few wild owls ever do. An owl, given peace and plenty, can be a long-lived companion through many turning years. The pellets owls leave behind have become a small gift to learning. Gathered up and gently cleaned, they are handed out in classrooms so that children can tease them apart and find the tiny bones inside, piecing together from a single dry lump the story of an owl's meal. Many a young person has met the hidden life of the night for the first time through the quiet evidence of an owl's pellet. And so the owl draws us in, as it always has, with its watching face and its silent wings, and its life lived in the hours we do not keep. It is hunter and symbol, wisdom and omen, the most familiar of strangers, glimpsed at the edge of the dark. We have named it after its call, carved it into stone, set it beside our gods, and still it keeps the greater part of itself hidden, out there in the night, listening. And so, as the night deepens, the owls are waking. Somewhere, a great horned owl gives its soft, slow hooting from a high bare branch, and far off another answers. A barn owl glides white and silent over a darkened field, its heart-shaped face turning, listening to the grass. A tiny, sore, wet owl slips south through the dark unseen. Snowy owls sit on the frozen tundra under the stars. The pellets gather quietly beneath the roosting trees. The round white eggs rest warm in their hollows. The owlets sleep in their soft down, waiting to be fed. And out over the fields, the wide, soft wings move without a sound, the way they have moved for longer than there have been people to wonder at them. The moon climbs slowly. The fields go silver. Somewhere a small owl calls once and then is quiet. The wind moves softly through the dark trees. A pale shape drifts across the open ground and is gone. The night holds still. The owls are watching, silent, patient. Their great eyes open to the dark. And gradually the calls grow fewer. The wings grow still. The moonlight settles soft across the grass. A last faint hoot drifts far away through the trees and fades. The dark grows quiet. The owls keep their watch. Silent wings, soft feathers, moonlight, and the long, gentle, breathing quiet of the night.